The morning sun cast long shadows across the naval base in San Diego as Admiral James Morrison stepped out of his black sedan. At 52, he carried himself with the confidence of a man who had spent 3 decades climbing the ranks of the United States Navy. His uniform was pressed to perfection, medals gleaming on his chest, and his graying hair was cut with military precision. Today was supposed to be a routine inspection of the SEAL training facilities, nothing more than a scheduled visit to observe the progress of the latest batch of candidates. The base was alive with activity. Young sailors hurried past, some carrying equipment, others engaged in morning drills. The sound of helicopters overhead mixed with the distant crash of waves against the nearby shore. Admiral Morrison had seen this scene countless times before, but he never tired of witnessing the dedication and discipline that defined naval operations. As he walked toward the training compound, his aide, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Webb, fell into step beside him. She had been briefing him on the day's schedule since they left his office an hour earlier. The inspection would cover 3 main areas: the underwater demolition training pool, the obstacle course, and the live fire range. Each location would showcase different aspects of SEAL preparation, from physical endurance to tactical precision. The first stop was the obstacle course, where dozens of SEAL candidates were pushing their bodies to the limit. The course was a brutal test of strength, speed, and mental toughness. Wooden walls stood 20 feet high, rope climbs stretched toward the sky, and mud pits waited to slow down anyone who lost their footing. The instructors, all former SEALs themselves, shouted encouragement and criticism in equal measure. Admiral Morrison watched with approval as the candidates tackled each challenge. These were not ordinary soldiers. Each man had volunteered for one of the most demanding military programs in the world, knowing that the majority would not complete the training. The dropout rate for SEAL training hovered around 80%, and those who remained faced months of increasingly difficult challenges. Among the candidates, one figure caught his attention. At first glance, there was nothing unusual about the person navigating the rope climb with smooth, practiced movements. The standard camouflage uniform and helmet obscured most identifying features, and, from a distance, the individual blended seamlessly with the other trainees. However, something about the fluid grace and tactical awareness displayed during the exercises suggested this was no ordinary candidate. The morning progressed through various training modules. Admiral Morrison observed combat swimming exercises in the pool, where candidates had to complete underwater navigation while holding their breath for extended periods. He watched marksmanship training, where future SEALs learned to hit targets at incredible distances under stressful conditions. Each activity reinforced the elite nature of the program and the exceptional quality of those who pursued it. During a brief break between training sessions, Admiral Morrison found himself standing near a group of instructors. They were discussing the current batch of candidates with the casual professionalism that marked experienced military personnel. One instructor, a weathered chief petty officer with 20 years of service, was particularly vocal about the quality of the trainees. "This group shows real promise," the chief said, gesturing toward the candidates who were taking advantage of the break to hydrate and check their equipment. "We've got some natural athletes, and a few who really understand the mental game. That's what separates the ones who make it from the ones who ring the bell." The reference to ringing the bell needed no explanation among military personnel. During SEAL training, candidates who decided to quit would ring a brass bell 3 times, symbolically ending their participation in the program. It was a moment of defeat that every instructor and candidate understood completely. As the break concluded and training resumed, Admiral Morrison noticed the same figure from earlier now participating in close-quarters combat exercises. The movements were precise and controlled, demonstrating a level of skill that seemed almost instinctive. While other candidates showed the awkwardness expected of those still learning advanced techniques, this individual moved with the confidence of someone who had extensive prior experience. The combat training involved practicing room-clearing procedures, a critical skill for special operations forces. Teams of candidates would work together to enter mock buildings and neutralize simulated threats while protecting innocent civilians. The exercises required split-second decision-making, flawless communication, and absolute trust in one's teammates. Admiral Morrison watched as the mysterious candidate took point during one exercise, leading a 4-person team through a complex scenario. The leadership displayed was natural and effective, guiding the team through each challenge without hesitation. When unexpected complications arose in the simulation, the response was calm and professional, exactly what instructors hoped to see from future SEALs. The afternoon brought weapons training on the live-fire range. This was where candidates learned to handle the diverse arsenal that SEALs might encounter in the field, from standard assault rifles to specialized sniper systems. Safety protocols were absolute, and instructors maintained constant oversight as candidates practiced engaging targets at various distances and angles. During the shooting exercises, Admiral Morrison positioned himself at an observation point that provided a clear view of all participants. The sound of gunfire echoed across the range as candidates worked through carefully designed scenarios. Some showed natural marksmanship ability, while others struggled with the pressure of being evaluated during every shot. The candidate who had drawn his attention earlier was now demonstrating exceptional shooting skills. Every shot seemed to find its mark with mechanical precision, and the transitions between targets were smooth and efficient. This level of accuracy typically took months to develop, yet here was someone who appeared to have mastered these skills already. As the day's training concluded, Admiral Morrison found himself increasingly curious about this standout performer. The combination of physical ability, tactical knowledge, and natural leadership suggested someone with significant military background, but SEAL candidates typically came from other naval specialties or occasionally from other service branches. This individual seemed to possess skills that exceeded what would normally be expected from that background. The final activity of the day was a team-building exercise that required candidates to work together to solve complex problems under time pressure. These exercises were designed to identify natural leaders and to test how well individuals could function as part of a unit. SEAL operations depended entirely on teamwork, and no amount of individual skill could compensate for an inability to work effectively with others. Admiral Morrison watched as teams formed and began tackling their assigned challenges. The problems were intentionally difficult and often had no obvious solution, forcing candidates to think creatively while managing stress and fatigue. Some teams struggled with communication, while others became bogged down in analysis without taking action. The team that included the mysterious candidate approached their challenge differently. Instead of immediately jumping into action or becoming paralyzed by the complexity of the problem, they spent several minutes carefully analyzing the situation and developing a coordinated plan. The leadership that emerged was subtle but effective, guiding the team toward a solution without dominating the discussion. As Admiral Morrison prepared to conclude his inspection and return to his office, he made a mental note to inquire about this particular candidate. Something about the demonstration of skills and leadership qualities suggested a story worth investigating. In his experience, exceptional performance often came with interesting background details. The drive back to headquarters gave Admiral Morrison time to reflect on what he had observed during the inspection. The overall quality of the current SEAL candidates was impressive, which was encouraging given the increasingly complex challenges facing special operations forces around the world. However, one individual had clearly stood out from an already exceptional group. Lieutenant Commander Webb noticed the Admiral's thoughtful mood during the return trip. She had worked with him long enough to recognize when something had captured his attention beyond the routine aspects of an inspection. His questions about specific candidates and training procedures suggested that today's visit had been more significant than originally planned. Back at his office, Admiral Morrison reviewed the schedule for the following week. There were budget meetings, personnel evaluations, and strategic planning sessions that demanded his attention. However, he found his thoughts returning to the SEAL training facility and the candidate whose performance had been so remarkable. The mystery surrounding this individual's background and capabilities intrigued him professionally. In 30 years of military service, Admiral Morrison had developed an eye for exceptional talent, and something about today's observation suggested there was much more to discover. The combination of skills demonstrated during the training exercises painted a picture of someone with extensive experience and capabilities that extended well beyond what would be expected from a typical SEAL candidate. As evening approached and the base settled into its quieter nighttime rhythm, Admiral Morrison made a decision. Tomorrow, he would make some inquiries about this candidate's background and training history. Something told him that the story behind this exceptional performance would be both surprising and significant, potentially changing his understanding of who was pursuing SEAL training and why. The base's lights twinkled in the darkness as Admiral Morrison finally prepared to leave his office. The day had begun as a routine inspection but had evolved into something much more intriguing. Tomorrow would bring answers to the questions that had formed during his observations, and He suspected those answers would be more surprising than anything he could currently imagine. The mysterious candidate who had demonstrated such remarkable skills during the training exercises represented a puzzle that demanded solving. In Admiral Morrison's experience, such exceptional performance rarely occurred by accident, and the truth behind this individual's capabilities would undoubtedly prove to be fascinating and significant in ways he was only beginning to understand. The next morning arrived with the crisp efficiency that characterized military installations worldwide. Admiral Morrison entered his office before dawn, as was his custom, and immediately requested the training files for all current SEAL candidates. Lieutenant Commander Webb had anticipated his request and already prepared the relevant documents, understanding that yesterday's inspection had sparked something more than routine interest. The files were arranged on his desk in neat stacks, each containing the complete military history, psychological evaluations, and performance records of every individual currently enrolled in the SEAL training program. Admiral Morrison began reviewing them systematically, looking for any candidate whose background might explain the exceptional performance he had witnessed the previous day. Most files followed predictable patterns. Young sailors who had distinguished themselves in other naval specialties, Marines seeking to transition into special operations, and occasionally personnel from the Army or Air Force who had received approval for inter-service transfers. Each candidate had undergone extensive screening before being accepted into the program, including physical fitness tests, psychological evaluations, and thorough background investigations. As Admiral Morrison worked through the files, he found several candidates with impressive credentials. There was a former Marine reconnaissance specialist with combat experience in 3 theaters of operation. Another file belonged to a Navy explosive ordnance disposal technician who had served multiple tours overseas. Each background was notable, but none seemed to match the level of advanced skills he had observed during the previous day's training exercises. The file that stopped his review completely belonged to someone listed simply as A. Morgan. The photograph showed a person with short brown hair and intense green eyes, but the image quality was standard military identification fare that revealed little about personality or capabilities. What was unusual was how sparse the background information appeared to be. According to the official records, A. Morgan had enlisted in the Navy 18 months earlier and had completed basic training with honors. The file showed assignment to a communications specialist program, followed by what appeared to be routine duty aboard a destroyer in the Pacific Fleet. On paper, this looked like a completely unremarkable naval career that provided no obvious preparation for the advanced skills demonstrated during SEAL training. Admiral Morrison studied the file more carefully, noting several inconsistencies that troubled his experienced eye. The timeline showed gaps that were not adequately explained by the documented assignments. The performance evaluations were uniformly excellent, but written in language that seemed oddly generic, lacking the specific details that typically characterize thorough assessments of military personnel. Most puzzling was the absence of any detailed training records beyond basic military education. SEAL candidates typically brought specialized skills from previous assignments, whether in combat operations, technical specialties, or advanced physical training. A. Morgan's file suggested no such background, yet the performance observed during yesterday's exercises indicated someone with extensive prior experience in exactly those areas. Lieutenant Commander Webb knocked and entered the office, carrying a fresh cup of coffee and additional documents that Admiral Morrison had requested. She had worked with him long enough to recognize when an investigation was developing, and her efficient support had always been invaluable during such moments. "Sir, I've pulled the complete training records from yesterday's exercises, including instructor evaluations and performance metrics," she reported, placing the new files on his desk. "I also requested clarification on any candidates who might have incomplete documentation in their personnel files." Admiral Morrison appreciated her proactive approach. "What did you find regarding incomplete documentation?" "Interesting patterns, sir. Most candidates have extensive prior service records that clearly document their preparation for SEAL training. However, one individual appears to have a file that's remarkably thin for someone performing at such an advanced level." She indicated the A. Morgan file that was still open on his desk. The instructor evaluations from yesterday's training painted a picture that was even more intriguing than Admiral Morrison's personal observations. Every SEAL instructor who had worked with A. Morgan noted exceptional performance that exceeded expectations for someone at this stage of training. The comments were consistently positive, but often included puzzled observations about the apparent previous experience that was not documented in the official records. One instructor had written, Candidate Morgan demonstrates advanced tactical awareness and weapons handling that suggests extensive prior training, possibly in special operations context. However, documented background does not support this level of capability. Another noted, leadership skills and decision-making under pressure are exceptional. Recommend investigation of prior military experience not reflected in personnel file. Admiral Morrison leaned back in his chair, considering the implications of what he was reading. In 30 years of military service, he had encountered situations where personnel files did not tell the complete story, but this case was particularly unusual. The gap between documented background and observed performance was so significant that it suggested either a massive oversight in record-keeping or something more deliberate. The phone on his desk buzzed with an incoming call from Captain Rodriguez, the commanding officer of the SEAL training facility. Admiral Morrison had left instructions to be contacted if any additional information became available about the candidates he was investigating. Admiral Morrison, he answered. Sir, you had inquired about one of our current candidates, A. Morgan. I've been reviewing the situation with my senior instructors, and we've discovered something that might interest you. Go ahead, Captain. Yesterday evening, after the training concluded, Candidate Morgan approached one of our instructors with a request that was quite unusual. Instead of asking questions about technique or seeking clarification about requirements, Morgan asked about the security protocols for protecting classified information during training exercises. Admiral Morrison felt his interest sharpen. What specifically was the nature of this inquiry? The question involved procedures for maintaining operational security when training scenarios might reveal information about actual SEAL tactics and capabilities. It was the kind of question that someone would ask if they were already familiar with classified operational procedures and wanted to ensure they didn't inadvertently compromise anything during training. This information added another layer to the mystery surrounding A. Morgan. Understanding operational security at that level suggested exposure to classified information that would not be available to someone with the background documented in the personnel file. It was the kind of knowledge that came from participation in actual special operations or intelligence work. After concluding the call, Admiral Morrison made a decision that reflected both his curiosity and his sense of duty. If there was more to A. Morgan's story than what appeared in the official documentation, he needed to understand what it was and why it had been concealed. The implications could be significant for multiple reasons. He placed a secure call to the Navy Personnel Command, requesting a comprehensive background verification for A. Morgan that would go beyond the standard documentation review. This type of investigation could uncover information that might have been classified or compartmentalized for security reasons, providing a more complete picture of the individual's actual background and qualifications. While waiting for the results of the expanded background check, Admiral Morrison decided to take a more direct approach. He would return to the SEAL training facility and observe A. Morgan more carefully, looking for any additional clues that might explain the exceptional performance and apparent prior experience that was not reflected in the official records. The afternoon found Admiral Morrison back at the training facility, this time positioning himself where he could observe the candidates more discreetly. Today's training focused on underwater operations, one of the most challenging aspects of SEAL preparation. Candidates would be tested on their ability to navigate underwater obstacles, plant simulated explosives, and extract intelligence while managing the extreme physical demands of extended breath-holding. The underwater training pool was a complex facility designed to simulate real-world conditions that SEALs might encounter during actual operations. Obstacles, mock ship hulls, and artificial reef structures created an environment that tested both technical skill and mental toughness. Candidates who struggled with claustrophobia or underwater navigation would quickly discover their limitations. Admiral Morrison watched as A. Morgan approached the underwater challenges with the same calm competence that had been evident during the previous day's exercises. The movements underwater were smooth and efficient, suggesting someone who was completely comfortable in that environment. More importantly, the tactical approaches to each challenge showed an understanding of underwater operations that typically took months to develop. During a particularly complex exercise involving underwater demolition procedures, A. Morgan demonstrated knowledge of advanced techniques that surprised even the experienced instructors. The ability to correctly identify optimal placement points for simulated explosives, while managing air consumption and navigation simultaneously, required a level of expertise that went far beyond what would be expected from someone with a documented background. One of the senior instructors, Chief Petty Officer Martinez, approached Admiral Morrison during a brief break in the training. Martinez had 22 years of experience, including multiple deployments with SEAL teams, and his assessment of candidates was typically accurate and insightful. "Admiral, I've been wondering if you might have some insight about candidate Morgan," Chief Martinez said quietly. "The performance level we're seeing doesn't match what we normally expect from someone with that particular background." Admiral Morrison decided to probe gently. "What specifically concerns you, Chief?" "Sir, yesterday Morgan demonstrated advanced hand-to-hand combat techniques that are not taught in standard Navy training. Today, the underwater work shows familiarity with procedures that are typically classified at levels well above what a communications specialist would have access to. Either we're dealing with someone who has received training that's not documented, or we have an individual with natural abilities that are frankly unprecedented." This conversation confirmed Admiral Morrison's growing suspicion that Morgan's true background was significantly different from what appeared in the official personnel file. The combination of advanced tactical knowledge, exceptional physical capabilities, and understanding of classified procedures painted a picture of someone with extensive special operations experience. As the day's training concluded, Admiral Morrison made another decision. He would request a meeting with Morgan directly, using the pretext of recognizing exceptional performance during training. This approach would allow him to assess the individual personally, while potentially gaining insight into the mystery surrounding the documented background versus demonstrated capabilities. The request for the meeting was submitted through normal channels, with Admiral Morrison indicating that he wanted to personally commend outstanding performance during recent training exercises. This type of recognition was not unusual, and it would provide an opportunity for direct observation and conversation without raising suspicions about the underlying investigation. Lieutenant Commander Webb was tasked with arranging the meeting for the following morning, ensuring that it would appear routine while providing sufficient time for meaningful conversation. Admiral Morrison spent the evening reviewing all available information once more, preparing questions that might reveal additional details about Morgan's true background and qualifications. The secure call from Navy Personnel Command came through just as Admiral Morrison was preparing to leave his office. The voice on the other end was professional, but carried a tone that suggested the investigation had uncovered significant information. "Admiral Morrison, we've completed the expanded background verification you requested for Morgan. Sir, I need to inform you that this individual's complete file is classified at a level that requires special authorization for access. However, I can tell you that the documentation you currently have represents only a small portion of their actual military background." Admiral Morrison felt a surge of anticipation. "What can you tell me within current security protocols?" "Sir, I recommend that you request a classified briefing through appropriate channels. The information involved has implications that go well beyond routine personnel matters. What I can say is that your instincts about this individual were correct, and the true story is significantly more complex than what appears in the standard documentation." As Admiral Morrison ended the call, he realized that tomorrow's meeting with Morgan would be far more significant than he had originally anticipated. The mystery was deepening, and the answers would apparently require navigating security classifications and protocols that suggested this situation involved much more than an unusually talented SEAL candidate. The evening found Admiral Morrison contemplating the implications of what he had discovered. In his experience, personnel files were classified only when they involved special operations, intelligence work, or other activities that demanded the highest levels of security. The fact that Morgan's complete background required special authorization to access suggested involvement in operations that were far beyond anything a communications specialist would normally encounter. Tomorrow's meeting would provide an opportunity to begin understanding who Morgan really was and what circumstances had led to participation in SEAL training with such an extensively concealed background. Admiral Morrison suspected that the answers would be both fascinating and significant, potentially changing his understanding of the entire situation in ways he could not yet imagine. Admiral Morrison arrived at his office earlier than usual, spending the pre-dawn hours preparing for what he suspected would be one of the most unusual meetings of his career. The classified briefing materials had arrived overnight through secure channels, and what he read fundamentally changed his understanding of the situation. Morgan was not simply an exceptional SEAL candidate with an incomplete personnel file. The true story was far more complex and significant. The classified documents revealed that Morgan was actually Lieutenant Commander Alexandra Morgan, a decorated intelligence officer who who had spent the past 8 years working in deep cover operations for naval intelligence. Her official cover as a communications specialist was carefully constructed to allow movement between assignments while maintaining her actual identity as one of the Navy's most capable undercover operatives. Alexandra Morgan's real military record was impressive beyond anything Admiral Morrison had imagined. She had graduated first in her class from the Naval Academy, completed multiple advanced training programs in intelligence, linguistics, and special operations, and had served in classified assignments across 3 continents. Her expertise included counterintelligence, advanced reconnaissance, and operations that required the highest levels of tactical skill and judgment. The reason for her presence in SEAL training was equally surprising. Alexandra was not actually a candidate seeking to become a SEAL. She was conducting a classified assessment of the training program's security protocols and effectiveness, evaluating potential vulnerabilities that foreign intelligence services might exploit. Her exceptional performance during training exercises was the result of years of advanced military education and real-world operational experience. According to the briefing materials, Alexandra's assignment involved spending several weeks embedded within the SEAL training program, observing procedures, and identifying any aspects of the curriculum that might inadvertently reveal classified information or tactics. Her mission required maintaining perfect cover while conducting a thorough analysis of one of the military's most sensitive training environments. Admiral Morrison realized that his observations during the inspection had actually been watching a highly trained professional conducting a covert operation. Alexandra's advanced skills and tactical knowledge were not mysterious gaps in documentation, but rather the expected capabilities of someone with extensive special operations background operating under deep cover. The implications of this revelation were significant. If Admiral Morrison had been able to identify inconsistencies in Alexandra's cover story, it raised questions about the effectiveness of the identity protection measures. More importantly, it suggested that other personnel might also notice discrepancies that could compromise the security of the assessment operation. At precisely 0800 hours, Lieutenant Commander Webb knocked on Admiral Morrison's door and announced that candidate Morgan had arrived for the scheduled meeting. Admiral Morrison took a deep breath, knowing that the next hour would require carefully balancing his role as an admiral recognizing exceptional performance while avoiding any indication that he had discovered the true nature of Alexandra's presence at the training facility. "Send them in," Admiral Morrison replied, standing to receive his visitor. Alexandra Morgan entered the office in standard training uniform, appearing exactly as she had during the previous day's observations. Her posture was military correct, but relaxed, and her expression showed appropriate respect combined with curiosity about why an admiral had requested a personal meeting. To anyone observing, she appeared to be exactly what her cover identity suggested, an exceptional SEAL candidate receiving recognition for outstanding performance. "Candidate Morgan reporting as ordered, sir," Alexandra said, offering a crisp salute that Admiral Morrison returned. "Please, have a seat," Admiral Morrison replied, gesturing toward the chair positioned in front of his desk. "I wanted to personally commend you for the exceptional performance you've demonstrated during SEAL training. Your instructors have provided uniformly positive evaluations, and my own observations confirm that you're operating at a level that's quite remarkable." Alexandra accepted the praise with appropriate modesty. "Thank you, sir. The training is challenging, but I'm finding it very rewarding. The instructors are excellent, and I'm learning a great deal about special operations procedures." Admiral Morrison studied Alexandra's demeanor carefully, noting the way she maintained her cover identity while acknowledging his comments. Her responses were exactly what would be expected from a talented candidate, but he could detect subtle indicators of someone who was far more experienced than she was pretending to be. "Your background shows service as a communications specialist," Admiral Morrison continued, testing to see how she would handle questions about her documented history. "That's not typically considered ideal preparation for SEAL training. What motivated you to pursue this path?" "Sir, I've always been interested in special operations, and I felt that my technical background could contribute to the communications aspects of SEAL missions," Alexandra replied smoothly. The communications specialist training emphasized working under pressure and maintaining reliable contact in challenging environments, which seemed relevant to what SEALs do. The answer was plausible and well-prepared, but Admiral Morrison could hear the careful construction behind it. Someone with Alexandra's actual background would have no difficulty maintaining cover during casual questioning, but he was beginning to understand the complexity of the situation she was managing. Admiral Morrison decided to probe more directly, while still maintaining the appearance of a routine recognition meeting. Your performance during tactical exercises has been particularly impressive. Have you had any prior military training that might explain your advanced capabilities? Alexandra paused for just a moment, a hesitation so brief that someone without Admiral Morrison's experience might have missed it entirely. Sir, I've always been physically active, and I spent considerable time studying military tactics and procedures before applying for SEAL training. I wanted to be as prepared as possible for the challenges. This response was clearly rehearsed, but Admiral Morrison recognized that Alexandra was in a difficult position. She could not acknowledge her real background without compromising her mission, but she also needed to provide explanations for performance that exceeded what her cover story could reasonably support. Admiral Morrison made a decision that would test both his judgment and Alexandra's ability to maintain operational security. I've been reviewing your file, and I must say that your documented background seems remarkably sparse for someone demonstrating such advanced capabilities. Is there anything else about your preparation or experience that might help explain your exceptional performance? The question was carefully phrased to give Alexandra an opportunity to reveal as much or as little as she chose, while maintaining deniability for Admiral Morrison if the situation required it later. He watched her expression carefully, looking for any indication of how she would respond to direct but subtle pressure. Alexandra met his gaze steadily, and for a moment Admiral Morrison glimpsed the intelligence and determination that had made her successful in covert operations. Sir, I understand that my performance might seem inconsistent with my documented background. However, I can assure you that everything in my personnel file is accurate, and I'm committed to maintaining the highest standards during SEAL training. The response was masterful in its precision. Alexandra had acknowledged his observation without admitting anything, confirmed the accuracy of her cover documentation without claiming it was complete, and reaffirmed her commitment to the training program without specifying what that commitment actually entailed. Admiral Morrison realized that he was dealing with someone whose operational skills extended well beyond tactical and physical capabilities. Alexandra's ability to navigate this conversation while maintaining her cover demonstrated the kind of professional competence that he associated with the most capable intelligence officers. I appreciate your commitment to excellence, Admiral Morrison replied, signaling his understanding of the situation without making any direct acknowledgments. The SEAL program benefits from having candidates who bring diverse backgrounds and exceptional dedication to the training. As the conversation continued, Admiral Morrison found himself impressed not only with Alexandra's cover skills, but also with the broader implications of what she was accomplishing. Conducting a security assessment of SEAL training while maintaining perfect cover required capabilities that few military personnel possessed. She was essentially running a complex intelligence operation while simultaneously performing at an elite level in one of the military's most demanding programs. The meeting lasted another 20 minutes, during which Admiral Morrison carefully gathered additional insights about Alexandra's mission without compromising her operational security. Her assessment of the SEAL training program appeared to be thorough and professional, identifying potential security vulnerabilities while recognizing the overall excellence of the curriculum and instruction. As the meeting concluded, Admiral Morrison stood and extended his hand to Alexandra. Candidate Morgan, I want you to know that your performance reflects very positively on both your dedication and the quality of personnel attracted to SEAL training. I'll be following your progress with interest. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your recognition and support, Alexandra replied, shaking his hand with a grip that confirmed the physical conditioning evident in her training performance. After Alexandra left the office, Admiral Morrison sat quietly for several minutes, processing the implications of what he had learned. The situation was more complex than he had initially realized, involving not just an exceptional candidate, but a sophisticated intelligence operation designed to protect the security of SEAL training procedures. The fact that he had been able to identify inconsistencies in Alexandra's cover raised important questions about operational security that would need to be addressed. However, his admiration for her professional capabilities was genuine. Maintaining cover while conducting a thorough security assessment required skills that represented the best of military intelligence training and experience. Lieutenant Commander Webb returned to the office with the afternoon schedule, noting Admiral Morrison's thoughtful expression. How was the meeting with candidate Morgan, sir? Quite illuminating, Admiral Morrison replied carefully. I think we can expect continued exceptional performance from that individual. The remainder of the day found Admiral Morrison considering the broader implications of Alexandra's mission and what it revealed about the Navy's commitment to protecting its most sensitive training programs. The fact that such sophisticated security assessments were being conducted demonstrated the seriousness with which the military approached operational security in an era of increasing intelligence threats. That evening, Admiral Morrison received a secure communication from Naval Intelligence, confirming that his meeting with Alexandra had been monitored and that his handling of the situation had been appropriate. The message indicated that his discretion was appreciated and that the assessment operation would continue as planned. The communication also provided additional context about the importance of Alexandra's mission. Recent intelligence indicated that foreign services were increasingly interested in U.S. special operations capabilities, making security assessments of training programs a critical priority. Alexandra's work was part of a broader effort to ensure that America's elite military units maintained their operational advantages. As Admiral Morrison prepared to leave his office, he reflected on the day's revelations and their significance. In 30 years of military service, he had encountered many impressive professionals, but Alexandra Morgan represented something exceptional even by those standards. Her ability to excel in SEAL training while conducting a classified intelligence mission demonstrated capabilities that embodied the best of American military professionalism. The mystery that had begun with observations of exceptional performance during a routine training inspection had evolved into an appreciation for the sophisticated measures taken to protect national security. Alexandra's mission was a reminder that the most important military operations often took place in environments where their existence remained completely hidden from public view. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and responsibilities, but Admiral Morrison now understood that his inadvertent discovery of Alexandra's true identity had provided valuable insights into both the capabilities of American intelligence operations and the dedication of the professionals who conducted them. The woman who had appeared to be an unusually talented SEAL candidate was actually one of the Navy's most capable operatives, and her presence at the training facility represented a level of security consciousness that he found both impressive and reassuring. The base settled into its evening quiet as Admiral Morrison finally departed, carrying with him a new understanding of the complex layers of activity that took place within military installations. Some operations were visible and obvious, while others remained completely hidden, conducted by professionals whose exceptional capabilities enabled them to succeed in missions that few people would ever know had taken place. Alexandra Morgan would continue her assessment of SEAL training security, and Admiral Morrison would continue his routine duties as a senior naval officer. However, both now understood that their brief intersection had provided mutual insights into the dedication and professionalism that characterized the best of American military service, even when that service took place in the shadows where recognition would never be public or official. 3 weeks had passed since Admiral Morrison's enlightening meeting with Alexandra Morgan, and the SEAL training program continued its relentless pace. Alexandra maintained her cover flawlessly, performing at the exceptional level that had first captured the Admiral's attention while conducting her classified security assessment with professional precision. To all external observers, she remained exactly what her documentation indicated, an outstanding candidate progressing through one of the military's most demanding programs. The morning of Tuesday, March 15th, began like any other training day. The San Diego weather was perfect for outdoor exercises, with clear skies and mild temperatures that would allow the candidates to focus entirely on their challenges without environmental distractions. Admiral Morrison had not planned to visit the training facility that day, but a last-minute change in his schedule created an opportunity to observe the progress of the current class. The day's training focused on advanced tactical scenarios that tested candidates' ability to operate effectively under extreme stress while making complex decisions in rapidly changing situations. These exercises were designed to simulate real-world conditions that SEALs might encounter during actual operations, requiring seamless integration of physical skills, tactical knowledge, and mental toughness. Admiral Morrison arrived at the training facility just as the candidates were beginning a particularly challenging exercise known as urban warfare simulation. This scenario required teams to navigate through a mock city environment while completing multiple objectives under time pressure and simulated enemy contact. The exercise tested everything from marksmanship and communication to leadership and creative problem solving. As he positioned himself at the observation area, Admiral Morrison noted that Alexandra was leading one of the four-person teams assigned to the exercise. Her teammates included some of the most capable candidates in the current class, and their combined performance would provide an excellent demonstration of advanced tactical coordination. The urban warfare simulation began with teams receiving mission briefings that outlined their objectives, available resources, and rules of engagement. Each team was required to move through the mock city environment, locate and secure specific targets, gather intelligence, and extract safely while avoiding or neutralizing simulated opposition forces. Admiral Morrison watched as Alexandra's team approached their assigned sector with methodical precision. Their movement through the urban terrain showed sophisticated understanding of tactical principles, with each team member maintaining proper spacing and covering assigned fields of fire. The coordination was seamless, suggesting extensive prior experience in exactly these types of operations. 20 minutes into the exercise, Alexandra's team had successfully completed 2 of their 3 primary objectives and was moving toward the final target location. Their performance had been flawless, demonstrating the kind of tactical excellence that characterized actual SEAL operations. Other teams were struggling with various aspects of the scenario, but Alexandra's group moved with confidence and efficiency that impressed even the experienced instructors. The final objective required the team to extract a simulated hostage from a defended position while minimizing collateral damage and ensuring their own safety. This was the most complex part of the exercise, demanding split-second decision-making and perfect coordination among team members. Many candidate teams had difficulty with this scenario, often becoming bogged down in planning or making tactical errors under pressure. Admiral Morrison watched intently as Alexandra's team approached the hostage location. Their preliminary reconnaissance was thorough but quick, identifying defensive positions and potential entry points with professional efficiency. The plan they developed was sophisticated, showing understanding of advanced tactical concepts that typically took months of specialized training to master. As the team prepared to execute their hostage rescue plan, an unexpected complication arose that would transform the entire day. A group of visiting foreign military observers, part of an international training exchange program, appeared at the observation area. The delegation included senior officers from allied nations who were studying American special operations training methods. Among the foreign observers was Colonel Hans Weber, a decorated German Special Forces officer who had extensive experience in international military operations. Colonel Weber was known for his expertise in recognizing exceptional tactical performance, and his assessments of training programs were highly respected within NATO military circles. Admiral Morrison greeted the foreign delegation politely, explaining the current exercise and providing context about SEAL training procedures. The international officers were clearly impressed by the sophistication of the training environment and the quality of the candidates they were observing. Their questions demonstrated genuine interest in learning from American special operations methodology. As the conversation with the foreign observers continued, Alexandra's team initiated their hostage rescue operation. The execution was flawless, with each team member performing their assigned role with mechanical precision. The hostage was secured quickly and safely, opposition forces were neutralized efficiently, and the extraction proceeded without any tactical errors. Colonel Weber watched the operation with growing interest, his experienced eye recognizing the exceptional level of performance being demonstrated. As Alexandra's team completed their mission and began moving toward the exercise conclusion point, the German officer made an observation that would change everything. "Admiral Morrison," Colonel Weber said quietly, "that team leader's tactical performance is quite remarkable. The coordination and decision-making I just witnessed suggests someone with extensive prior experience in special operations. Those are not the movements of a candidate learning basic procedures." Admiral Morrison felt a moment of concern. If a foreign observer could identify Alexandra's exceptional capabilities, it suggested that her cover might not be as secure as everyone had assumed. The implications could be significant for her ongoing security assessment mission and potentially for broader operational security concerns. Before Admiral Morrison could respond to Colonel Weber's observation, the exercise concluded and candidates began gathering at the designated assembly area for debriefing. This was standard procedure after complex training scenarios, allowing instructors to review performance and provide feedback while the details remained fresh in everyone's memory. As the candidates formed up for debriefing, Admiral Morrison noticed something that made his pulse quicken. Standing among the foreign observers was a man he recognized as Colonel Viktor Petrov, a Russian military attaché whose presence at American training facilities always raised security concerns. Petrov's attendance at the international exchange program had apparently not been communicated to Admiral Morrison in advance. The situation was becoming more complex by the moment. Alexandra was conducting a classified security assessment while maintaining deep cover. Foreign observers were evaluating American training methods, and a Russian intelligence officer was present during advanced tactical demonstrations. Admiral Morrison realized that the day's events could have implications that extended far beyond routine training exercises. As the debriefing began, Alexandra took her place among the other candidates, appearing completely at ease despite the scrutiny from multiple foreign observers. Her ability to maintain cover under these circumstances demonstrated the professional skills that made her valuable for covert intelligence operations. However, Admiral Morrison was becoming increasingly concerned about potential security implications. The lead instructor, Chief Petty Officer Martinez, began reviewing the exercise results with his customary attention to detail. Each team's performance was analyzed systematically, with specific attention to tactical decisions, execution quality, and areas for improvement. The feedback was constructive but demanding, reflecting the high standards expected of future SEALs. When Martinez reached Alexandra's team, his praise was genuine and enthusiastic. Team Alpha demonstrated textbook tactical coordination during today's exercise. The hostage rescue operation was executed with precision that reflects excellent preparation and natural leadership abilities. Every team member contributed effectively to mission success. The positive evaluation drew approving nods from the foreign observers, who clearly recognized exceptional performance when they saw it. Colonel Weber made several notes in his observation journal, and even Colonel Petrov appeared impressed by what he had witnessed. Admiral Morrison realized that Alexandra's cover was being tested in ways that no one had anticipated. As the debriefing continued, Admiral Morrison made a decision that would prove to be pivotal. He approached the group of foreign observers and began engaging them in detailed discussions about American training methodology, effectively directing their attention away from individual candidates and toward broader program characteristics. This subtle redirection helped reduce the focus on Alexandra's exceptional performance while maintaining appropriate courtesy toward the visiting delegation. The strategy was effective until an unexpected moment that changed everything completely. As the debriefing concluded and candidates were preparing to return to their quarters, Colonel Petrov approached Alexandra directly. His interest in her performance had apparently overcome diplomatic protocol, and he wanted to engage her in conversation about tactical procedures. "Excuse me," Colonel Petrov said to Alexandra in accented but clear English. "Your performance during today's exercise was quite impressive. I would be interested in discussing your tactical approach to the hostage rescue scenario." This was exactly the kind of situation that could compromise Alexandra's cover and potentially create significant security problems. Admiral Morrison moved quickly to intervene, but before he could reach them, something extraordinary happened that would reveal everything. Instead of responding as a SEAL candidate would, Alexandra instinctively reacted with the trained caution of an experienced intelligence officer who recognized a potential threat. Her posture shifted subtly into a more alert stance, and her eyes quickly scanned the immediate area to assess potential escape routes and support options. The change was subtle but unmistakable to someone with Admiral Morrison's experience. More importantly, it was immediately noticed by Chief Petty Officer Martinez, who had worked with enough intelligence personnel to recognize the signs of someone operating undercover. What happened next was completely unexpected and would transform everyone's understanding of the situation. Without warning, Chief Martinez stepped forward and rendered a crisp military salute directly to Alexandra, treating her with the respect due to a senior officer rather than as a SEAL candidate under his instruction. The salute was so sudden and unexpected that it caught everyone off guard. Alexandra, operating on trained instincts, automatically returned the salute with the precision and authority of an experienced officer. For just a moment, her cover was completely dropped as muscle memory took over, and she responded as Lieutenant Commander Alexandra Morgan rather than as Candidate A. Morgan. The exchange lasted only seconds, but it was enough. Colonel Weber, Colonel Petrov, and the other foreign observers immediately recognized that they had just witnessed something significant. The dynamic between Chief Martinez and Alexandra was clearly not that of instructor and candidate, but rather that of military professionals acknowledging each other's true status. Admiral Morrison felt his heart rate increase as he realized that Alexandra's cover had been essentially blown in front of a group of foreign military observers, including a Russian intelligence officer. The implications were staggering, potentially compromising not only Alexandra's current mission but also broader operational security concerns. Colonel Petrov's expression changed immediately as he processed what he had just witnessed. His experience in intelligence work allowed him to quickly understand that he had discovered something significant about American military operations that was not supposed to be visible to foreign observers. In the tense silence that followed the unexpected salute exchange, Admiral Morrison made a decision that would require all of his diplomatic and leadership skills. He stepped forward with apparent calm, addressing the group of foreign observers as if nothing unusual had occurred. "Gentlemen, what you've just witnessed is an example of the exceptional respect that develops between SEAL instructors and candidates who demonstrate outstanding performance," Admiral Morrison said smoothly. Chief Martinez was recognizing candidate Morgan's leadership during today's exercise in a way that reflects the mutual respect that characterizes our training environment. The explanation was plausible, but did not entirely address what the experienced foreign officers had observed. Colonel Weber and Colonel Petrov exchanged glances that suggested they understood that something more significant had taken place. However, diplomatic protocol prevented them from pursuing the matter directly in front of their American hosts. As the foreign delegation prepared to depart, Admiral Morrison realized that the day's events would require immediate attention from multiple perspectives. Alexandra's cover had been compromised, potentially creating security implications that would need to be addressed quickly and professionally. The presence of foreign observers, particularly Colonel Petrov, meant that information about American intelligence operations might now be in the hands of potential adversaries. The afternoon that had begun as routine training exercises had evolved into a complex security situation that would require careful management and potentially significant operational changes. Admiral Morrison understood that his next decisions would be crucial for protecting both Alexandra's safety and broader American security interests. As the foreign observers departed and the training facility returned to its normal rhythm, Admiral Morrison knew that the salute exchange between Chief Martinez and Alexandra had changed everything. What had been a carefully controlled security assessment operation had suddenly become visible to foreign intelligence services, creating challenges that no one had anticipated when the mission began. The evening would bring urgent secure communications, emergency planning sessions, and decisions that would affect not only Alexandra's immediate situation, but potentially the broader security of American Special Operations training. The moment when Chief Martinez had saluted Alexandra would be remembered as the instant when a covert operation became exposed, requiring new strategies and approaches to protect national security interests. The secure conference room in Admiral Morrison's headquarters building had never hosted a meeting quite like the one that convened at 1800 hours that evening. Present were Admiral Morrison, Lieutenant Commander Alexandra Morgan, Captain Rodriguez from the SEAL training facility, and two senior officials from Naval Intelligence whose presence indicated the seriousness of the situation that had developed during the afternoon's training exercises. Alexandra sat at the conference table wearing her service dress uniform rather than training gear, her actual rank insignia finally visible after weeks of operating undercover. The transformation from SEAL candidate to intelligence officer was remarkable, revealing the professional bearing and confidence that had been carefully concealed during her assessment mission. Admiral Morrison opened the meeting by reviewing the events that had led to Alexandra's cover being compromised. The unexpected salute from Chief Martinez, while well-intentioned, had effectively ended the covert phase of the security assessment operation. More concerning was the fact that foreign observers, including a Russian intelligence officer, had witnessed the exchange and almost certainly understood its implications. The immediate question, Admiral Morrison stated, is how to proceed given that the covert aspect of Lieutenant Commander Morgan's mission has been compromised. We need to assess the potential security implications and determine the best course of action for protecting both operational security and personnel safety. Captain Rodriguez spoke first, expressing his concerns about the broader implications of what had occurred. "Sir, Chief Martinez has worked with intelligence personnel before, and he recognized something in Lieutenant Commander Morgan's behavior that triggered his response. The question is whether other personnel in the training program might have had similar suspicions that were never reported." This was a crucial point. If Alexandra's cover had been transparent to experienced military personnel, It raised questions about the effectiveness of her operational disguise and potentially about the security of similar operations in the future. The assessment would need to determine whether the compromise was an isolated incident or part of a broader pattern. Alexandra provided her own analysis of the situation with the professional objectivity that had made her successful in intelligence work. My assessment is that the cover identity was adequate for casual observation, but may not have been sufficient for the level of scrutiny that exists in an elite training environment. SEAL instructors are highly experienced professionals who work regularly with special operations personnel from various backgrounds. She continued, the tactical knowledge and physical capabilities required for my assessment mission were difficult to conceal completely while maintaining effective performance during training exercises. In retrospect, we may have underestimated the challenge of operating covertly in an environment populated by personnel with extensive special operations experience. The intelligence officials confirmed that preliminary analysis suggested the compromise was limited to the specific incident with Chief Martinez and the foreign observers. However, they emphasized the need for comprehensive review of all aspects of the operation to ensure that no additional security breaches had occurred. Admiral Morrison turned to the question of immediate next steps. What are our options for managing the current situation and completing the security assessment mission? One of the intelligence officials outlined several possibilities. The covert phase of the operation could be terminated immediately, with Alexandra returning to her regular duties while a different approach was developed for completing the security assessment. Alternatively, the mission could be transitioned to an overt evaluation that acknowledged her true identity while continuing to gather necessary information about training security. Alexandra offered a third option that demonstrated her commitment to mission completion. Sir, I believe we could transition to a hybrid approach that acknowledges my intelligence background while continuing the assessment from a new perspective. This would allow completion of the security evaluation while potentially providing valuable insights about how foreign intelligence services might attempt to penetrate SEAL training. The suggestion was intriguing and showed Alexandra's ability to adapt operational approaches based on changing circumstances. Instead of viewing the compromise of her cover as mission failure, she was proposing to use it as an opportunity to gather different, but equally valuable intelligence about security vulnerabilities. Captain Rodriguez supported this approach, noting that having an acknowledged intelligence expert evaluate SEAL training could provide insights that were not possible during covert observation. Lieutenant Commander Morgan's recommendations could be even more valuable if she can work openly with our instructors to identify potential security improvements. Admiral Morrison spent several minutes considering the options before making his decision. The hybrid approach offered the best combination of completing the original mission while managing the security implications of the afternoon's events. It would also allow Alexandra to use her full expertise without the constraints imposed by maintaining cover. We'll proceed with the hybrid approach, Admiral Morrison announced. Lieutenant Commander Morgan will complete her security assessment working openly with SEAL training personnel. This will allow us to gather comprehensive information about potential vulnerabilities while demonstrating our commitment to maintaining the highest security standards. The intelligence officials expressed support for this decision, noting that it would also provide an opportunity to assess how foreign observers might interpret American responses to discovered intelligence operations. The way the situation was managed could provide valuable insights about potential adversary intelligence gathering techniques. As the meeting continued, the group developed a comprehensive plan for managing the transition from covert to overt assessment operations. Alexandra would work directly with SEAL training instructors to complete her security evaluation, focusing on areas where foreign intelligence services might attempt to gather information about American special operations capabilities. The plan also included protocols for managing any additional interactions with foreign observers who might have questions about the afternoon's events. Admiral Morrison would handle diplomatic inquiries, while intelligence officials would monitor for any signs that foreign services were attempting to exploit information gathered during the incident. Alexandra's assessment of SEAL training security continued for another 2 weeks, but now with full cooperation from instructors and administrators who understood her mission. Working openly, she was able to identify several areas where minor adjustments could enhance security without compromising the effectiveness of the training program. Her final report praised the overall excellence of SEAL training while recommending specific improvements in information handling procedures and visitor oversight protocols. The recommendations were practical and achievable, reflecting her deep understanding of both operational security requirements and training effectiveness considerations. More importantly, Alexandra's work demonstrated that American military personnel could adapt effectively when operations encountered unexpected challenges. The ability to transition from covert to overt assessment while maintaining mission objectives showed the kind of professional flexibility that characterized the best of American military capabilities. Admiral Morrison found the entire experience professionally enriching in ways he had not anticipated. His initial curiosity about an exceptional SEAL candidate had evolved into appreciation for sophisticated intelligence operations and the dedicated professionals who conducted them. Alexandra's skills and dedication represented the best of American military service, whether operating covertly or openly. The foreign observer incident also led to improved protocols for international military exchanges. New procedures were implemented to ensure better coordination between training operations and diplomatic activities, reducing the likelihood of similar complications in future international programs. Chief Martinez, whose spontaneous salute had triggered the entire situation, received additional training in operational security procedures. However, his ability to recognize exceptional performance and respond appropriately was also acknowledged as representing the kind of professional instincts that made SEAL training effective. 6 months later, Admiral Morrison received a secure communication from Naval Intelligence informing him that Alexandra had been selected for promotion to commander and assignment to a senior intelligence position at the Pentagon. Her work during the SEAL training assessment had been recognized as exemplary, contributing to improved security procedures across multiple special operations programs. The communication also noted that intelligence gathered during Alexandra's assessment had been used to enhance security protocols for similar training programs throughout the military. Her recommendations were being implemented systematically, strengthening protection of classified information while maintaining training effectiveness. Admiral Morrison reflected on how a routine training inspection had evolved into one of the most professionally rewarding experiences of his career. The discovery of Alexandra's true identity had provided insights into both the capabilities of American intelligence operations and the dedication of the professionals who conducted them. The woman who had initially appeared to be an exceptionally talented SEAL candidate had proven to be one of the Navy's most capable intelligence officers. Her mission had demonstrated that American military personnel could excel in complex operations while maintaining the highest standards of professionalism and security consciousness. Years later, Admiral Morrison would often think about Alexandra's assessment operation when considering the many layers of activity that took place within military organizations. Some operations were visible and obvious, while others remained hidden, conducted by professionals whose capabilities enabled them to succeed in missions that few people would ever know had occurred. The salute that had changed everything had ultimately led to mission success through adaptation and professional flexibility. What might have been viewed as operational failure had instead become an opportunity to demonstrate American military professionalism and capability under challenging circumstances. Admiral Morrison's career would continue for several more years, during which he would encounter many impressive military professionals. However, none would quite match the combination of skills, dedication, and adaptability that Alexandra Morgan had demonstrated during her weeks at the SEAL training facility. The story of the woman who looked like a civilian candidate but commanded the respect of experienced special operations personnel would remain classified for many years. However, the principles it demonstrated about American military excellence, adaptability, and dedication to national security would continue to inspire military professionals who understood that the most important missions often took place in environments where their success would never be publicly acknowledged or celebrated. In the end, Alexandra's assessment operation had achieved all of its original objectives while providing additional insights that strengthened American security capabilities. The compromise of her cover had been transformed into an opportunity for enhanced cooperation and improved procedures, demonstrating that American military personnel could succeed even when operations encountered unexpected complications. The SEAL training facility continued its mission of preparing elite warriors for the most challenging military operations, now with enhanced security procedures that reflected lessons learned from Alexandra's assessment. The foreign observer incident had been managed successfully, with diplomatic relationships maintained while security interests were protected. Admiral Morrison's routine inspection had evolved into a complex intelligence operation that ultimately demonstrated the best qualities of American military service, professional excellence, adaptability under pressure, and unwavering commitment to national security. The woman whose exceptional performance had first captured his attention had proven to represent everything that made American special operations capabilities the finest in the world.